everyone, welcome to the Ask the Expert session. My name is Judith Dugdale. I'm a Chartered Accountant and Head of Digital Solutions at MHA Moore & Smalley. Today I am joined with Eva, so I think Eva is just going to do a quick intro too.
Hi guys, my name is Eva and I'm an accountancy market specialist in Irish Software Group.
So today, before we start answering any of your questions, which you can ask by popping them in the comments box, we just both wanted to run through some of the things that we've been seeing through our client base over the last 3-4 months and the last 12 months actually as well. From my point of view, I deal with a whole range of clients, be them small startups all the way through to 10, 11, 12 million pound businesses, and across all sectors, a lot in hospitality and leisure, a lot in online sales, but a lot in consultancy and traditional shop environments. So what each client has seen has been dramatically different. What we've been managing in the last sort of 3-4 months is lots and lots of questions still around the impact of lockdown. I'm based up in the northwest of England, so pretty much most of my clients that are affected by lockdown have been in some form of lockdown since October. We started in the tier 4 at that point, which was pretty much full lockdown for us. And then obviously the whole country went into lockdown. And we're not back out of it yet. I mean, obviously the good news is we do know when that's coming. So what we've been doing is trying to help our clients make sure they make the most out of the furlough scheme, make sure they're claiming as many of the grants that are available, be that the main government grants that are coming through and the SEIS grant, but also local discretionary funds that may or may not be available through their local authority. We've also had a huge influx of queries in January and February about Brexit. It's been a massive impact for an awful lot of our clients. Personally, I thought sort of 6 months ago when we knew the Brexit plan was coming, be it deal or no deal, I naively thought that a lot of my clients wouldn't necessarily be massively affected because I didn't have a huge amount of importers, and the clients that I did have that traded online didn't really trade massively in Europe, but there has been a big problem for an awful lot of my clients in terms of stock being stuck, being claimed by customs and having to try and get that stock out. For those clients that I said that were fairly small selling into Europe, suddenly hit with the prospect of either having to register for VAT in the European country in which they're selling so that their customers have a seamless sales experience just as they did pre-Brexit, or taking the decision to pass on the duty issues to their customers, which then means that they send the goods out themselves as normal, but unfortunately their customers then have to pay duty to get it delivered to their home address or business address. So we've had lots and lots of advice calls with that, having to register people for VAT in those countries, and as well as looking at the ongoing reporting requirements that go with all that. And then finally, one of the things that we've been looking at probably for at least the last year, but it's come more into the fore in the last sort of 6 months with the latest lockdowns. And that's about business continuity and business planning in terms of particularly focused on family businesses, the older generation of that family business deciding it's time for them now to pass on their business to the next generation that work within the organisation already. What the pandemic brought with it was a big digitalisation proposition for most businesses out there, irrelevant of what field you are in. And not to judge everybody, but mostly it was the slightly younger generations, your 50-year-olds lower down, who were the ones that embraced the digital change and were trying to pivot. I'm sure that's a phrase that you've all heard an awful lot of times in the last sort of 3-4 months particularly, and pivoting is what has been needed to be done. And those that embrace the digitalisation of the economy that's going through now are able to pivot better. So we did find an awful lot of businesses where the older generation just didn't want to face another change. They've been through recessions already, they've been through major changes, and this was almost a step too far for them. So we've been helping an awful lot of our clients plan for that changeover and enabling the older generation to exit the business with a retirement fund that is sustainable for the existing business to fund going forwards. So as you can see, a big mix of things that we're doing, all on top of our normal bookkeeping, year-end accounts, tax returns, corporation tax returns. So for myself, and I'm sure for Eva as well, we've had a very busy 12 months. I'm not sure, Eva, if you've had the same sort of thing or you've seen other bits of changes coming through.
Yes, thank you, Judith. So probably pretty much similar in many cases, but I would say that in the last 12 months, certainly at least the first 9 months last year, from March, since the lockdown, I think this was the most stressful and the most busy period for any accountant in the world. And, you know what, hands up and well done to all of you guys out there who were literally fighting in the field for your clients, because we didn't have an easy job. And it brought a lot of the challenges, a lot of maybe sleepless nights as well, because we were trying to figure out how to help our clients, how to help them to keep their businesses afloat. So we had my kind of background is accountancy practice, so I would have been working with various sectors as well as Judith. So it would come from small business to kind of medium-sized business owners, and then kind of issues with furlough and so on. So I would have been advising clients on the furlough and on all the rules, because they were continuously changing, as you all remember, and also helping with the self-employment grants as well, and helping people maybe to look into other grants available, probably based on their locality where they are based as well. I would like to point maybe the most top questions that I would have been asked the most often in the last 12 months. And I'd like to kind of see a lot of people embracing technology and embracing digital, because obviously that is making our life easier as accountants. And we would see traditionally very digitally averse clients who want to come on board. So I thought few pointers maybe for you guys would be good. So if somebody comes here and asks, I want to set up on the digital record keeping, to which obviously QuickBooks, it's an amazing tool to do this. So for you guys out there, don't wait until you grow or until you are big or until you are busy, but start how you mean to go on and try to set up from the first day and commit the time to the record keeping and to the real time keeping information, so you are on top of everything every day. And because that's when you get the most out of the system, rather than kind of going historically back 3 or 6 months. Obviously, this is connected to the cash flow as well. As long as you're on top of your records, on top of your invoicing, then your credit control process should be easier. We've seen many businesses really being challenged in terms of maybe waiting too long for clients to pay, them being in the same position, trying to delay payments as much as possible. So it was a challenging time, but the ones that have been organized and have communicated with their clients and maybe gave them incentive for early payment, and also spoke to their suppliers about, maybe extending the payment terms, those generally got through okay, but it was because they weren't burying their head in the sand, but they actually wanted to do something with the situation. So that's very important. And in terms of the clients who would be maybe on the historically desktop or computer-based digital software from the and who would want to migrate the data onto digital, my kind of the most important piece of advice would be, if you put mess in, you will have mess out in the system. So this is the time for you, if you are changing systems, to tidy up, to bring all your records up to date. So don't be putting in obsolete, unrelevant information, because you're going to be kind of keeping the bad habits that you had in your previous accounting system. So use this as a kind of make a clear line and fresh start, and be organized. Make sure your records are clean, because that's how you get the most out of the software, rather than just dumping stuff in that you didn't use for years. I think that that's all from me for now, because I see we have some questions already coming. So Judith, do you want to take the first one?
Yes, thanks, Eva. So the first question we've had that has come through says, how are you best preparing your clients now that we have a roadmap out of lockdown? And that's a really good question. I actually did an Ask the Expert session last week, which we focused a little bit on this. And if anybody hasn't watched the series of Ask the Expert, they're on every morning, Monday to Friday at 8:30. Intuit run those free of charge, and you can, if you access the Intuit Community SMB Facebook page, on there you will see links on how to watch those Ask the Expert sessions live or recorded. But yes, it's a big thing, because like I said, I have an awful lot of clients in hospitality and leisure, and I also have a lot of clients that lead into hospitality and leisure, and they've obviously also been affected. I've got quite a few gyms that have had to shut down, and they've pivoted quite well in terms of online classes. And some of the hotels and restaurants and things have done takeaways to help keep some income coming through. But obviously it's not possible. For example, if you're a wedding venue, you can't pivot too much. The only pivoting you could really do was to do some online showcases of what people can expect if they had a wedding with you, and views of the venue itself, and like the bridal suite and things like that, and try and get some bookings in for when you can reopen. So now we've got a roadmap in terms of the various different dates of when things are opening. It's a lot easier for us to sit down with clients and plan what their steps should be. And those steps obviously depend on the size of the business, because obviously it's harder for some businesses to reopen than others, because they may have some compliance regulations to keep up with and update. They might have no members of staff, so it's just them and it's dead easy to reopen the doors. They could have loads of staff. And obviously we're not quite sure how the reopening is going to work. So for example, I'm working with some in hospitality at the moment who are able to reopen outside initially for a 4 or 5 week period, and then they can open up inside. So to make sure they're ready, they're having to look at their cash flow position now. They're having to look at what supplies they need to make between now and opening day. They need to look at rotas in terms of staff and try to guess how busy they will be and how much minimum levels of staff they need. They're going to be serving food outside, but obviously they won't have all the inside space that they would normally have, so they won't need all the staff back. There are an awful lot of conversations around the menus that they'll do. Will they do cut down menus so that it's easier to maintain the service levels, and that there's not a massive amount of different dishes to cook, which require maybe more chefs in at the same time. So there's all that side of it. Now, the really good news is in the budget that's just been going on just before this session, and I know there's a session coming up which will be covering some of those budget points. The great news is furlough's been extended to the end of September. There's another 2 SEISS grants. So there'll be one coming through to April, and then another one that will finish up to the end of September. So it's great news that we've got those bits of grant funding available. They've also announced some rates holidays, and they've also announced a new fund. And that new fund will be really interesting to see, because the CBILS and the bounce back loans, they end at the end of March. So people may well be reopening, particularly I'm thinking quite a lot of the hotel side of things, who can't actually open till quite a bit later than everyone else. They may well need some funding. And obviously end of March, if they haven't got the bounce back loan applications in, or the CBILS loan application, that's no longer open to them. So this new fund will be really interesting to see how that could possibly help them. One thing we are looking at clients is that because those loan applications have to be in by the end of March for the CBILS and bounce back loan, we're sitting down with those clients now to see whether they've actually taken them out yet. And if they haven't taken them out, we're trying to quickly put together the information they need to get an application in to help with all the cash flow issues that come with the reopening. And as well, if you've taken a bounce back loan already, but you didn't take the maximum amount you could, you can apply for a top up. So we have been doing that with a number of our clients as well. And the key thing here is cash is king. So we are looking at cash flow with all our businesses. And what we're doing to try and keep it nice and simple, instead of doing big 12 months cash flow forecasts, which can seem really, really complicated to put together, particularly when we just don't know what it's going to be like when we reopen, or what it's going to be like in 3 months, 6 months, or a year. What we're doing, and we've done this in the past when we came out of recessions, is we're doing 12-week rolling cash flows. And if you use QuickBooks Online, you've got all the information within your software to help put together a rolling 12-week cash flow. And indeed, the software itself does have a cash flow area to it now, which will help you with that planning. And you can go in and adapt different things and speak to your accountant if you're a business, just to see whether they've got any other tips, maybe other software that will link into QuickBooks that could help you with that planning process. I don't know, Eva, whether you've got anything extra that you're doing with your clients.
I think, Judith, you summed it up very well. I'm just going to take another question. So this is kind of continuing from what I mentioned before. How do I use best practice to clean my data? This is actually one of my favorite topics because it's kind of you part of creating something better, and there is a great satisfaction once you have a project like this done. So depending how long have you been using the software, obviously that's going to probably determine the length of the task that you have ahead of yourself. But what I would do first, I would kind of divide my plan into different sections. And I'm talking, if we're talking about some kind of bookkeeping accounting software. So we have sections: customers, suppliers, chart of accounts, projects, stock, and so on, price lists. So always do one section and then move on. So for example, in the customers or suppliers, if you go through the list and you see names that you haven't dealt with for years, or you just have historical balances there that they're not making any sense, look into those records, and if those are kind of obsolete customers or suppliers, remove those. Don't be kind of wasting your valuable space with the records that you're not going to use, you're not going to come back. I'm not saying just go and delete, but you know your business, you have a feeling maybe those businesses don't even exist anymore. So there is no point of you to have them there. And maybe some softwares such as QuickBooks would have the facility of instead of deleting, just inactivating. So you kind of inactivate them from your active list, but you still have the records there, which to me, I think it's a great feature, just in case you need to look into something later and just make a note. The other area of really good clean is chart of accounts. And let me tell you, people can be so creative as they grow their business. And over the years, you can have so many amazing nominals calling different various names, which maybe it made sense at that time for the person who were created it, but probably it's not making much more sense now. And there is only so much detail you want to go into your trial balance or into your profit and loss. And sometimes what happens, you would have duplicates. So you would be posting things which have similar name, and you would be posting, different things onto different nominals, but it's all the same thing. So again, go through your chart of accounts and make sure that those codes that are there are still relevant, you are using them. Maybe sometimes even if the description isn't clear, I would adjust the description, just making sure that you are 100% clear on what you put in where. Obviously, making sure that all the nominals are sitting where they should be sitting. Of course, look at the kind of weird balances. I would say investigate as well, just to make sure there are no mispostings or balances that really shouldn't be there. So then it should be cleared. So that kind of, it is giving you picture, because once you have your data clean, the idea would be that you are able to run your reports in the real time, anytime. So as long as you don't have those obsolete things in it, again, it gives you a bit more accuracy as well. Price list, sometimes there are like duplicate prices for the same product, or obsolete, maybe the price was updated, but it has never been changed. So again, make sure when you're cleaning those data, obviously you need to have the proper source of your price list and go through item and check. This kind of cleaning of data, as it might sound like really posh, but it's a bit of dirty work in my view, and it takes long. It can sometimes takes hours and days for you, but the satisfaction at the end of this, I think it's enormous, because you have now clean set of data. And also in terms of the stock as well. So depending on the type of business, if you are using stock facility in your software, make sure that this aligns with the real situation as it is. And again, if you have any items that don't exist anymore, don't believe in them. So you kind of trying to declutter your data as well, and try to get rid of the stuff that you are not using or you're not going to be using. Also, good thing if you look at your bank accounts, which is kind of, it's part of the nominal, but sometimes people would create funny duplicate bank accounts or like control accounts, but they never are control accounts, or they are never used. So make sure, again, that it's the data you see in front of you, they are kind of showing the true picture of it. So good luck with this task. It's definitely something that everyone should do. And even in terms of the data migration, always I would encourage first cleaning, data cleansing, before you migrate anything. I think that's all from me. Judith, back to you.
Thanks, Eva. Yes, somebody has just asked a question specifically mentioning me, so I best address that one. And that says, Judith, what grants are available? Can I still get a bounce back loan? And you mentioned an SS grant. So I'll look at them in turn. So in terms of grants available, when the first lockdown happened, the government issued grants to all hospitality and leisure clients and retail, and you got those automatically if you were paying rates or had small rate relief. So they should all have been paid they should have all been paid pretty much by the end of, I think it was end of April, start of May. If you think you should have had one of those, then you need to speak to your local authority. What happened then is that the government released a pot of money to local councils and local authorities to set up what we call discretionary funds. So they were there for those businesses that maybe didn't pay rates but were massively affected by the pandemic and had no access to any support at all. So you used to apply for those to your local authority. Now, I know, for example, in a few of the local authority areas near me, those discretionary funds have all been spent now. And I'm not sure how it is around the rest of the country, but I would suspect most of them have been exhausted. The bounce back loan which was another one of your points. This was launched not straight away. The CBILS came first, the business interruption loan scheme, and then after that came the bounce back loan specifically for smaller businesses. There's a cap of £50,000 that you can borrow under that scheme. You need to apply for that through your bank. It's really, really simple. I can't tell. I was so surprised how easy and simple it is to do that. All you really need with you is obviously your bank account details. And in terms of your business, you need to know if you're a limited company, your limited company, company's house number, your UTR for corporation tax. And if you're not a company, you can apply using your UTR for self-assessment or your partnership UTR. The deadline is the 31st of March. Now, I did have a meeting with one of the banks last week, and I asked whether they thought that these might be extended, and they weren't hopeful. And obviously in the budget today, from the little snippet that I saw, they haven't been extended, but there is something new coming along, which people, small businesses will be able to apply for. But you have got to the 31st of March. And my understanding from the bank I spoke to is that as long as your application is in and acknowledged pre 31st of March, then it doesn't matter if you've not actually got the funds by the 31st of March. They can pay you those in April. It's just getting that actual application form in pre 31st of March. So I'd highly recommend that people do that if they haven't already done so, and they've obviously been affected by lockdown. The SS grant I mentioned is possibly my accent and the fact that I was saying it too fast, but it's the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme grant that I was referring to. And that grant is available for self-employed or sole traders, so not limited companies, and not directors of limited companies. It is just for those that declare their income on a self-assessment tax return. So you can claim those. I think the current one, I think the applications opened at the end of 1st of February, I seem to recall. So there's one that you can claim that covers through, I think it's meant to cover November, December and January. And then there'll be another one for February, March and April, which you'll be able to apply for in April. And then a further one to cover May through to September, which I believe you'll be able to start applying for in July. And the amount you can apply for is automatically calculated by HMRC based on self-assessment tax returns that you've submitted in the past. So hopefully that answers your question for you. Eva, if you want to pick up the next one.
Yeah, thank you. So next question is, I'm about to start a business. What should I do? From Tracy, I think. So thank you for the question. Now, well done first for taking the courage to start a business. Depending on the type of the business, I would be thinking about a few things here. So first of all, premises, depending if you need one's premises or not. So make sure if you do need premises that those premises are easily accessible in terms of health and safety, that there is no danger to you or your clients or your potential employees, whether they are nicely signposted as well, so everybody knows where you are, whether you have all the equipment that you need, whether you have Wi-Fi connection, electricity, heating and water, depending on the business. So make sure you have all this kind of checked, especially if those premises are like completely new that you're not taking from other similar type of business. So make sure whatever are the requirements of your business that those premises have those. In case you are setting up from home or working from home, obviously make sure that you have enough working space and never underestimate the point or the idea of home office, no matter how small, but it's very important for you to have some kind of your escape room where you can be creative about your business, maybe jot your ideas down and do a lot of admin as well that it's required with business. That's the thing probably that it surprises most the people who start their business, that they never realize how much admin is connected to running a business, because when you are employee, you don't realize how many things are automatically done for you. So if you're thinking from starting to register with HMRC as self-employed and register with the bank, obviously I would recommend requesting a business bank account, where you from the start will keep separate all your business transactions from private. And then again, depending on your business, you very likely will need insurance. So public liability, professional indemnity insurance, do not underestimate this, because this is very important. Whether you are hairdresser, whether you are bookkeeper, or whether you are plumber, you want to be insured, because bad thing happens to good people, and sometimes you find yourself in the situation that you can do damage to your customer or to your client's home. So you do want to be protected. The insurance, it's very important, because this can actually ruin your business if you would get a case against you. Also make sure that when you want to start a business, that you have a cash to start, whether you are looking at your own saving, or maybe family members are helping you out, or whether you want to be approaching the bank for the money to start up your business. If the latter is the case, obviously you very likely will need a business plan that will prove the bank that the money that you want to borrow, that you will use it on the specific purpose, and that those money will help to make you more money. So I would advise to speak to the accounting professional, to the accountant, who will be able to help you with that. Yes, the role of the accountant in all of this as well, it's to me very important. Many people would say, oh, I'm small, I do not need accountant. But those accountants are professionals. They have been studying hard for the exams, and it's not like that you can just Google everything. They really do know what they are doing, and they are able to advise you on things that you might not have even thought about. And I'm talking from tax efficiencies straight from the go, or the way you should be watching out your cash flow and watching your money coming in and out. So the accountants are playing very vital role in helping you to set up and start properly. So never underestimate and speak to the accountant. In terms of the record keeping, again, I'm going to be repeating myself, but I feel it's important. Start how you mean to go on. So start, purchase bookkeeping or record keeping software. Obviously, QuickBooks, it's a great option and solution. You can sign in online, and you can access this from anywhere, anytime, as long as there is internet connection. So start your record keeping from the day one of starting your business, so you are organized, so you're not catching up with yourself 6 or 12 months down the line. Or if you are starting to grow rapidly and maybe you need extra cash, you will need business plan for the bank, and then you will need those data that you should have recorded so far from your business. So I think one of the first things is signing up for some kind of record keeping software, and at least then it gives you time to get familiar with the software and get used to it, so that you can get out of it most what you need. Now you are about to start your business. How do people know about your business? How will they know what you're doing, what you're trying to sell? So make a plan in terms of advertising on a social media, creating your website. So this is all very important, especially now, because people can't just meet face to face as freely as before, and many people would be looking online. So make sure that whatever you want to be portrayed as a business or individual, that you are putting it out there, that people know, they know your value, they know what you are about, and they know what your business is about. And then important to me is to create a relationship with your potential suppliers as well. right from the start, maybe you will need to do a bit of shopping or a bit of research on the potential suppliers, because not all of them might suit you. So again, you need to take into consideration what is the most important for you, whether it's price, whether it's speed of delivery service, or the importance of customer service. All of this you should consider where you are, where you shopping for your supplier. So make sure you do thorough research and talk to those suppliers, maybe ask for introductory terms, just to help you to start your business. But you are then from the go building valuable relationship with your supplier that will help you to progress and to be successful in your business. And also from the first client that you take on, make sure that you always provide the top class customer service, that you are clear with your customers on what you will be delivering, and that they are clear as well on what they can expect from you, so there are no misunderstandings on either side, and then kind of expectations that were never fulfilled. So this is kind of a short version of your journey. If you want to start a new business, there are many more, obviously registering with HMRC, which I have mentioned, but kind of there are many layers to it, and the requirements maybe change a little bit depending on the business, but kind of overall this is it. If Judith, if you have any more to add?
No, I think you covered most of that. I think depending on, the only thing I'd add is depending on what size of business you're likely to have, as Eva said, it's really important to engage with an accountant straight away, because they can advise you if maybe you're in a particularly risky sector, that you'd be better off being trading as a limited company, or that your growth plans are so large that it's better to set up as a limited company now. And as Eva said, it doesn't really matter how small you are, an accountant will help you. We deal with startups all the way through to large businesses. And we really do, we trained for a long time and it took a long time to do it, and it was hard work. So draw on that expertise so that we can help you. So looking at some of the other questions, one question that's been asked is there a change in the charging VAT beginning on the 1st of March, specifically for services and products manufacturing in construction sector? So yes, there has been a change. It actually was due to come in a couple of years ago, and it's been delayed. It's called the domestic reverse charge, and it applies to anybody that is trading within the construction sector, under which, you know, if you're in it, you'll know, because it's called the CIS. And what that means is that you will already be either gross data CIS, or maybe 20% deduction, 30% deduction, and you'll be filling in already forms to do with the construction industry scheme. So if you're doing that already and you are VAT registered, you will now be caught by this domestic reverse charge. Now, the good news is, if you use QuickBooks Online has updated all its systems so that as long as you've got the CIS turned on and you have your VAT turned on, then you will be able to have access to the new domestic reverse charge VAT codes. And it's really important that you do use those now. There are some exemptions. There are some areas of the construction industry that are exempt. It is only to do with people that make standard or reduced rate supplies. So if the person that you're working for is doing exempt supplies, then you probably won't need to deal with this issue. And again, this is where it comes in. Please take some advice from your accountant on this. I'm guessing if you're big enough to be VAT registered, then you really should have somebody that does your, or at least help you set up your VAT and does your year-end account. So please speak to them about this, because it's not really that straightforward. It can be, in most cases, but you just need to double check that it's how it applies to you and what work you're doing, because you may well have some work that falls under the domestic reverse charge, and you will have some work that doesn't fall under it. And for HMRC's purposes, you need to make sure that you use the right codes at the right time. As I said, QuickBooks is all set up for it, and it's easy to select your invoices for your labour and your materials and use the right domestic recharge code. And again, on your suppliers, when you get that information, those invoices in, if they have done the reverse charge, you will be able to account for that correctly. There is a note which you will find if you go to gov.uk and type in domestic reverse charge or VAT changes, it will come up with a web page, and there's loads of information on there, and there's a specific section which tells you what you need to put on your sales invoices, because when you're raising a sales invoice now using the domestic reverse charge, depending on what your software does, you will need to make sure you put a little statement at the bottom so that the person that receives your invoices knows that it's been accounted for under the domestic reverse charge, because it does affect how they then account for it at their end. So that's what I've got to say about the domestic reverse charge. There is another VAT question which I'll just fill in now, if that's all right with you, Eva, just while we're talking about that. And that was, somebody had asked a question about they've had a they deferred the VAT under the new lockdown rules in lockdown 1, which they have now since paid in March, which is great. The deadline is the end of March, if anyone didn't know, for the deferred VAT. But going forward, they wanted to know whether they can still join, and they've called it a VAT holiday scheme, for this year's VAT submissions, and if so, how does it work? So the VAT holiday scheme, which I think you're referring to, is sort of an extension from the deferred VAT scheme that was in place for the returns that fell between March, April and May in 2020. So you were able to defer those for 12 months. And then there is a scheme that's been put in place so that instead of having to pay them in one go in March of this year, you can apply to pay them off over a period of time. And that can be anything from a month to 11 months. And there is, again, on the government website, there is a way that there's a portal there that you can go to and apply to do that deferral. It opened, I think, around the 23rd of February from memory. So it's fairly new. So yes, if you haven't already paid that deferred VAT from last year, get that paid this month or set up this scheme. As far as I'm aware, and Eva may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not aware of any other VAT holiday schemes that are in existence at the moment. We have what you call time to pay agreements. Now, they've always been available. They're just a little bit more readily available with the current economic climate. So if you have a VAT return due and you can't pay it, whatever you do, just don't sit there and ignore it. Speak to HMRC and ask them if you can do a time to pay agreement with them. And they will look at all manner of areas of your business in terms of your cash flow, whether you've had any bank overdrafts, whether you've already got things like the business bounce back loan. And if they think it's applicable, which given the current economic climate, I would find it very hard to accept that they wouldn't agree with it, they will allow you to pay that off over 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, up to a maximum of 12 months. The only thing that could stop you getting that time to pay agreement is if you've already got one in place or you've had one in the past and defaulted on it, that might make it a little bit more difficult. But Eva, I'm not sure if I've missed another VAT holiday scheme, if you're aware of one.
No, Judith, I think you are right. Yeah, I think, and I agree, the most important thing is to act, not burying your head in the sand, because that's the worst you can do. There is always a solution to the problem, but you have to face it rather than postponing it or deferring it, because then things are much more difficult. And as Judith said, in current economic climate, HMRC is much more understanding. And this is my personal experience from dealing with HMRC on behalf of few of our clients that we had last year, that they are listening, and if you have valid reasons, they want to help you, because at the end they want to get money anyway of you, so they will try to facilitate you. I see another question. What risk assessments should I undertake when considering a business change / growth? So again, depending on the business and on the size of the business as it is now, some things will vary. But the questions that I would have asked my client would be, do you have the funds that you need for the business growth or for business change? Well, if it's a business change, if you're trying to maybe diversify a little bit or pivot your business, you might need more funds than just for the growth, because you might need to be investing in different equipment, different software, different type of premises, different consultants. So you need to kind of, for me, would be where I would ask client, where do you want to see yourself? What does the success look like for you? What is the end product or end success you want to go? And then kind of backwards working there, how you get there. But you need to have clear in your head what you want to achieve. I just want to grow my business because I want to make more money. You have to elaborate more on that, because it's not as simple as that. And then also with the growth or business diversification, there is a question of liability. So if you have some kind of insurance in place, you need to make sure that as you grow or as you expand or diversify, that this insurance is covering you for everything you are doing. That's very important, guys. And make sure you speak to your insurance provider, because they'll be able to help you. Yes, it might cost you more. So again, you will have to factor this in, but it's crucial to get this done right at the beginning in case something happen. Hopefully not, but just you have to be prepared. And then also in terms of scaling up, you need to look at your premises that you have now and ask yourself whether they will be still sufficient, or whether maybe you need extension, you need bigger offices, and that goes hand in hand with the resources you need. So maybe you will need this extra equipment, and maybe you will need extra employees as well. So are you able to afford those? It's kind of all, you have to factor this in straight at the beginning, so you don't have nasty surprises kind of later, because those are important factors for you then to be successful in your growth and in your diversifying. And also sometimes people forget about this option, but there is an option of outsourcing. Sometimes if it's very specific or expertise or type of work that you might be offering, or you might be looking to have done for your firm, sometimes it's cheaper to get it outsourced by a professional in that trade, rather than trying to look and employ someone, especially if this is not like full-time post that you would be looking to employ someone, or if it's just a short term, because you have experts out there who can outsource this for you. And it will be cheaper. And again, they will, as experts, you would expect them to get it right on the first time. So you don't need to be trialing and error and kind of wasting your money and your time. So look into that as well. And the last thing, which I already touched on a bit, but employees. So if you think you will need more employees as well, you need to be clear on what type of, what level of professional expertise or education you will be requiring from those employees. And again, as employer, if you have employer's liability, you need to make sure that you are being then covered if your number of the employees increases. And then with these employees going back, premises, have you got computer desk, have you got machinery and everything? So it's all kind of interconnected. I would almost encourage you to make a list of what will you need, and then go one by one down. And in terms of the costing, planning, how fast do you need, some things might come into play later. So you need to be able to prioritize, and maybe you don't have all the funds available at the beginning, but if this is maybe in the priority number 5 or number 6, and when you will be doing your cash flow plan or forecast, then you can factor in the later costs, but you need to make sure that you are able to cover those, because that might be difference between a failure and success of your growth plan or of your diversification. Judith, would you want to ask anything else, add anything else?
No, I think it's all been covered there. I guess from my old business studies days at A level, and then the chunks that I did at university, I would always, if you're thinking of if it's a business change and growth and it's diversifying into a new sector, is taking the time to do SWOT analysis and pest analysis, just to check that there's not a lot of competition out there, or there's some technological changes that could prevent it working, or economic changes out there that are just going to mean people won't have the money for that type of area. So I think that's the only thing I would add, is on which I'm hoping by the fact that you thought of a business change and growth, you've probably already assessed all that. But if not, yeah, I definitely recommend a pest or a PESTLE and a SWOT analysis, I would say. I think we've got time for one more question at least. So the next question we've been asked is, my customers are taking much longer to pay than previously. What can I do to make them pay on time? So the massive downside of a global pandemic is that most people have cash flow issues, unless they've been one of the very fortunate few that have seen a big growth in their business. And even those that are experiencing big growth in their business can still have cash flow issues. I think I remember dealing with this question quite a lot back in 2008, 2009, 2010, in the last recession, where working capital was really, really constricted, and people had to make that decision of, who do I pay this week? Who do I pay next week? And ultimately, that is what it comes down to. If a customer isn't paying you, it's because they believe that they can get away with paying you later than paying somebody else, or they just don't have the money, full stop. So I think in terms of trying to make them pay on time, there's a few things you can do from your end, admin wise. So that is to make sure your invoice goes out as soon as possible. Don't leave it to the end of the month, because you always do your invoicing at the end of the month. If you've done the service or made the sale mid-month, bill them as it's done. The sooner they have it, the sooner that they can plan to pay it. The second thing is to make sure terms and conditions are correct on your invoice, or even there. So many businesses I deal with have had issues with customers paying them, but then when you ask them what the payment terms, they say, well, it's on delivery of the invoice. And then you look at their invoice, it doesn't say that. So people automatically think they've got 30 days. So things like that, terms and conditions are really important, and stressing that at the point of sale as well. Quite a few of my clients have started asking clients for a down payment, so that they get some of the money in at the start. And whilst that may have not been a done thing a few years ago, because of the situation we are all in, and we all are in it together, it's people understand, your customers understand a lot more if you say to them, it's a big contract this I'm doing for you, or it's a big order to get together for you, so I need some of that money up front to enable me to fulfill this while we're getting back on our feet coming out of this lockdown. So that's another thing you can do. And then the other admin thing you can do is chase up those invoices as quickly as you can. So if they are due within 10 days, on the 10th day, don't wait for it to go to the 11th day, so they're overdue. On the 10th day, send a quick email to say, your invoice is due for payment today. I look forward to receiving it later. You can use third-party software to link into QuickBooks. There's a piece of software called Chaser, which can automate all your credit control, and their claims that it's more than pays for the cost of the software, because of the how quickly it brings in that money from your customers, because again, it prompts them to pay just before it's due. It prompts them the day it's gone overdue. It then prompts them whatever period of time you set up until that they pay. And I'm afraid it does come down to, the more you chase somebody for payment, the more likely you are to get paid. If you never chase that payment, you go to the bottom of the list. And I'm sure every one of you watching this who runs your own business has come to a point in time where you've got a number of bills to pay, and you choose by order of priority in terms of who is going to turn off any supplies to you if you don't pay them. The second thing is, who's going to hassle me so much that it's just not worth not paying them. I'd rather pay them first. And then there's always one supplier that sits there and you think, well, I'll not pay them because they never chase me, and I'll pay them when I can do. And you don't want to be that person that's bottom of the list. So make sure you've got that mechanism in place to keep chasing people. And I think importantly there, as I said about when you're looking at who you pay and when you pay them, the ones where they could turn off the availability of whatever it is you buy from them, depending on what sector you are in. If it is a repeat customer, then you will need to say to that customer, there are no more sales to you until you clear either in full the outstanding invoices, or you come up with a payment plan. And the payment plan is another really good area, a really good thing to put in place to get people to pay you. As I've said, and as you're all aware, there is cash issues for an awful lot of businesses out there, and most people don't want to buy stuff and not pay for it. They're just struggling to actually work out how they're going to pay for everything. So if you go to those customers and offer them a payment term, if they're really struggling, yes, it means you'll get your money longer over a longer period than you wanted to in the first place, but at least they will see that you're willing to work with them, and then you're more likely to get it all, as opposed to them getting into more difficulties and then you ending up not getting very much at all. So I think the first thing is make sure your invoices go out on time, as quickly as possible. Make sure you chase them before their due dates, particularly if it's a customer that always pays late. You'll be able to track that within QuickBooks, as in how long they take to pay. If you go into the invoicing section in QuickBooks, it gives you a list of all your invoices and how many days they are overdue. So you'll be able to go into there and you can easily, quickly send reminders, and it's all automated. One thing I would double check on QuickBooks, if you're sending your invoices out, what I just checked that person has opened the invoice, and it's a really, really good little tool that QuickBooks have added into invoices, that when you email them, you can see at the bottom of the invoice whether they've read it or not. So I would, if you've got people that are not paying you quickly enough, just check that they've actually opened it and read it. And if not, send it as a PDF attached to an email, and hopefully that will help you get those payments through. I don't think we've got much more time now. I think we're due to finish in less than a minute or so. Eva, is there anything you wanted to say before we have to end the session?
Yes, no, first of all, thank you, Judith, for co-speaking with me in this breakout session, and thank you all guys for tuning in and posting the questions. Make sure that you are tuning in to those Ask the Expert sessions every morning from 8:30 to 9 a.m. because there are some valuable insights from different experts from different fields that you can get free of charge, and you can ask any questions. I'm also not that I would be promoting myself, but I'm doing budget one tomorrow morning, so make sure you tune in. But it's been lovely to speak with you, Judith, and speak with you guys. Make sure you still stay safe and take care. Thank you.
Thank you.